my name's Gunnar Tautrim. I am a land steward here on the Aurelia Ranch on the Gaviota Coast. Property been in my family since the 1860s and is currently inhabited by the 5th, 6th, and 7th generation on this property. And I'm blessing every day to be here and hope to pass it on to another 7 generations.
So, what would you say motivates you?
What motivates
Or
me?
what do you want to accomplish? Maybe two different things.
Well, those are very different questions.
That's true. Well,
yeah.
actually, let's say, what do you want to accomplish?
All right. What would I like to accomplish? I'd say I'd like to accomplish, while I'm here on this short time, something that the next generation, which is 2 sons, who are 15 and 16 right now, I'd like to accomplish something that gives them the inspiration that I've had to nurture and steward this land for another 7 generations. They are the 7th generation on the same piece of land. That signifies something special to me, and I guess what I'd like to achieve is a system to where they see the system working. In the beginning, when you take a conventionally managed, fairly barren landscape and you try to plant these systems that permaculture and regenerative practices teach us, it can be daunting because, you know, these grasslands, these rangelands, they're dominated by European annual invasives, and they can be a real challenge to overcome. And you plant a tree line and tons of weeds come and you're weeding it every single year and you're thinking, I don't want to plant any more trees, this is a nightmare. And then eventually those trees start to produce what we call detritus, enough fallen organic matter to where they start mulching the ground themselves. And then you realize, wow, I don't have to do anything to that tree line again. So it's a bit daunting in the beginning. So I guess when you ask, what am I trying to achieve? I'm trying to achieve a system that is self-functioning enough that the next generation that inherits it isn't totally overwhelmed with taking care of all this stuff. Like by that time, it should be taking care of itself, and there should be resources that are appreciated. You know, we have the stone fruit orchard, we have the subtropical orchard, we have the timber species that my sons will be selective harvesting in their lifetime, that I won't be reaping those benefits. But if we come to a point where you can't go down to Home Depot, and frankly, the wood at Home Depot is garbage. I don't care if you're buying pressure treated or you're buying redwood, it's all garbage. And the ludicrousy of the environment we're in right now is you have people that have a resource, say eucalyptus, on their property, and they're like, oh, this invasive species, it's horrible, I'm gonna, you know, cut it down and burn it in my fireplace. And then they go to Home Depot and they buy treated lumber, and that treated lumber rots in the ground 5 years later, when in fact the eucalyptus that they cut down and burned will last 80 years in the ground with no treatment. Certain species, sugar gum in particular, which we have a lot of on some of these places. So the idea that what I want to achieve is the transfer of knowledge, first of all, to another generation. Of course, just not my children, but I share with everyone. The transfer of knowledge that this is the inherent value of these systems that rely on each other to function, right? It's not just one thing you're doing multiple things, and somehow that system helps with the whole. And then really honoring the value of the individual parts of that system. Like, wow, I can selectively harvest 5 trees and have enough wood to, build a whole new, be it fencing, be it pole wood, be it a new structure, whatever it is, like that's a resource. So I'd say that's what I'm trying to achieve. Inspiring the next generation and getting to a point within this property where it's not too overwhelming for that next generation. They can see the vision, they can see and they can appreciate all the shade created by all the trees we planted, and the depth of the soil, and the water holding capacity that we've created, all those various elements of the whole.
Does climate warming motivate you in what you're doing?
Well, the question was, does climate motivate me? Climate warming, global climate change. I would restate it as global weirding. I like that better because some places it's warming, some places it might not be, or at least different environments are going to react differently to a different carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere. Question was, does it motivate me? It motivates politicians, and I am, utilizing that motivation, meaning that there's money out there to do good work. So, for example, the Healthy Soils was motivated politically by, let's do something for global climate change. Let's make money available to build soils. Well, that's an amazing thing, because no matter what's happening with our climate, we want to build healthy soils. That's just smart, right? That's just good business, good stewardship. So I am utilizing the global climate scenario and making the most of it. Frankly, I think we should be doing that work regardless of a global climate catastrophe, as some people call it. And of course, we're anthropogenically human-induced CO2 is a contribution for sure to the atmosphere, but it's a rabbit hole of a question, because if you look historically where we've been in the past, this globe, this earth we live on, has had a very catastrophic history in the past. So we're not seeing anything this place hasn't seen before.
I'm featuring this milpa farmer who has indigenous knowledge. Do you have anything to say about the value of indigenous knowledge?
Oh, the value of indigenous knowledge is an amazing topic, and I'm glad you asked, because there is so much we could have learned from indigenous knowledge had it not been for the countless wars and countless religious persecutions and this. I mean, the burning of ancient Mayan texts, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the amount of knowledge that indigenous cultures maintained was absolutely amazing. And now, as we're just realizing the depth and breadth of that knowledge, it's damn near gone. And it's like we're just scratching at the last remnants of indigenous knowledge. And I think it's a real shame that wasn't honored a lot earlier. So I'm a huge proponent of indigenous knowledge, and I'd even take it a step further that oral traditions even texts that weren't written down, oral traditions that might be seen as like a myth or just a story, that we should be looking deeper at. What if that myth had a truth behind it? What if that legend of that sky god that did this, that, or the other thing, what if those stories were actually rooted in truth? And I think we're seeing more and more of the realization of how little we actually know about our past. So any remaining indigenous knowledge should be really honored as like really sacred.
One of the points, one of the farmers I interviewed is that he would like immigrants to have the opportunity to farm, because a lot of them have some of that ability, and immigrants aren't necessarily appreciated. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Immigrants to farm and traditional knowledge. Yeah, the question was...
I like how you repeat the questions, that's nice.
Yeah. The question was the right of immigrants to farm, or the desire of having immigrants farm, because oftentimes they bring something to the table that is that's unique, that some knowledge from where they came from. And for sure, I honor that the conventional agricultural model that we bring to the table is somebody's in an office building drawing this all up, saying this is how it's done, it's going to be as mechanized as possible, we're going to have as little labor needs as possible, but we still have a big labor pool need, and we're going to use the cheapest labor we can get, and we're going to tell them exactly how to do it. And so that's not honoring the possibility that there might be something that could be brought to the table by, as you said, immigrants or traditional knowledge of farmers, this and that. And I think it's a great opportunity to be it set aside, any landowner set aside property or parts or just gardens. And I've seen that, I've seen some of these larger ranches that have folks working on those ranches and go, grow a garden over there. Let's see what you do. And oftentimes they'll be like, whoa, did you see what's growing over there? Did you see how he's trellising that up there? And there's this like transfer of knowledge. So I think that is important. I think honoring that, and really the root of it all is being open-minded to different ideas and seeing what works and what doesn't, and new ideas coming from different cultures. We need that more than ever.
What are your thoughts about traditional monocropping? Is it kind of make a short-term profit, but there's a long-term loss to quality of life? Any thoughts about that?
Sure. The question was about monocropping, and really, what are my thoughts on monocropping? Is it a short-term gain with long-term issues that come with it? And for sure, that's my belief. I think that if you had the true cost put on products, for example, if you took into consideration the true environmental cost of that methyl bromide strawberry that you're buying, the soil nuking that strawberry was grown in. It was essentially grown in a petri dish that was annihilated of all biological, and given chemical inputs to look big and beautiful and red. Kind of tastes like shit, but who cares? It looks good on the shelf. If we were actually quantified all those values or negative values, that's very difficult to do, and that's why we don't see it. But I think when you strip it away and you look at monocrop agriculture, you're going to realize that, man, that short-term gain isn't really worth fighting for. And we're seeing that more and more. I mean, just the simple idea of crop rotation. I mean, even big conventional guys figured that out a long time ago. Like, we can't just grow corn every single year. We got to grow soybeans every third year, you know? And they probably only wanted to grow corn, you know, every single year, but they realize, like, oh man, it really helps if we do 1 year of soybean in between those years of corn. So it's like, even the big monocroppers are realizing that, yeah, there's something real to this. But I talked about it a little earlier, what's really scary is this food safety thing, this idea that no animals can be near anything food related, and that separation, it's got to be I mean, that's ludicrous. Like, we have a whole history of Earth behind us where animals have always been integrated into land, and there's no healthy grassland on Earth that didn't co-evolve without herbivores. I mean, the 30-foot deep roots and 30-foot deep soils you see in the Great Plains of days of old are a function of this ecosystem that revolved around the bison. And, you know, there's always been this synergy between herbivores and grasslands, for example. So to just say, like, nope, we need walls around our plants and we need animals and buildings, you know, on cement where we can wash away the feces, that I think is just insanity.
Also, monocropping hurts communities. A lot of farming communities don't exist, and any thoughts about that?
Sure. I mean, monocropping is the, or I'd say the result of monocropping has been the loss of community, the loss of family farms. I mean, just take, for example, back east or Ohio or any place that used to, say, 80 years ago, 90 years ago, you took any area east of the Mississippi and looked at what they were producing, and it was a multitude of stuff, right? Everyone had pigs because the pigs were the recyclers of their organic waste, and it gave them bacon, and it, you know, everyone had a cow because it gave them milk and cheese, and they might had their commodity crop, but they had this whole thing. And then monocropping came in, and it was like, nope, you're here to grow corn, and it's a pure function of how many stalks of corn can you get. So then the pig pasture disappeared because they wanted more acreage for that, and then the cow pasture disappeared, and then all this disappeared, and then you just got wall-to-wall corn with the one little house in between the thousands of acres of corn and soy. And what was the result of that is the loss of community, the loss of infrastructure, the glue that held the community together, the granges, right? The structures where farmers would meet and have dances and discuss. That's been eroded, and I think monocropping agriculture has been a big contributor to that erosion of that culture.
I like your point. If there was the real value of food, people might think different of it, even though it's hard to calculate. But that might be one of the solutions. Any further thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's one thought about how do we value like environmental services is one word that's been put on it, one phrase that's been put on it. Like, how do we value the environmental services of a healthy watershed, right? There's value in that. Another idea around that is, and there's actually development of this technology, but the ability to actually analyze the nutrient density of food. So if the shopper in your household could go into the store and they have children, because children are oftentimes, this thing happens in us as adults where we have kids and suddenly we care about something more than we've ever cared about anything, and it's our offspring. It's just something that naturally happens as a being. You see it in other animals too. But that person has the ability to look at this broccoli or lettuce or apple or whatever and determine the nutrient density of that food. Are they going to choose that methyl bromide, beautiful red strawberry that's been injected with every chemical fertilizer and fungicide and everything to get that beautiful look? Or are they going to choose this maybe not so beautiful, but probably deeper red actually, but the nutrient density, like that could change everything for us. That could be the consumer change to where someone's literally saying, you know what, nutrient density in our food is a critical function because we're losing market value. People aren't buying our stuff because this damn technological tool came out. It's an app on your phone now where you just scan the food and it tells you the nutrient density. Like, if there were a value, and they're working on this, a value to basically quantify that nutrient density, people are going to be choosing food that is better for you, that's healthier for you, makes you feel better. You might not need as much of it, right? We shouldn't be eating as much meat as we eat. We should be eating high quality meat and way less of it. And in doing so, we're not supporting confined feeding animal operations. We're not supporting all that thousands of acres of corn going to feedlots, right? It's part of the solution. And as the consumer, I mean, we always say vote with your dollar, but getting someone to vote with their dollar, that's the tricky part. And I think the nutrient density part could be a big solution to that. If we could honestly say that this is more nutrient dense than that, which are you going to do? And then as the consumer changes to that model, and the person now losing market value with their products because they're not nutrient dense, they're going to say, well, we want to have nutrient dense food. That's how we're going to make money. How do we do that? And then boom, now all of a sudden you get that person going, oh, it has to do with soil. Oh, it has to do with nutrient cycling. Oh, it has to do with the microbiology within my soil. This whole soil food web thing is how you get nutrient dense food. And now you get the big movement starting to do the right thing for the wrong reason. I had a professor in college who said, if you get someone to do the right thing for the wrong reason, screw it. Good to go, right? Because the right thing's happening. So if the big boys, the big monocrop folks start caring about nutrient density, then they're going to be doing the right thing for probably the wrong reason, but who cares? It's happening. And we saw that with organics, and it's been bastardized, right? The big boys didn't want anything to do with organics until the market share started growing so much. Then they said, well, we need our organic section of our label, right? And now you realize that that doesn't really mean that much. It doesn't mean as much as we think it does, want it to, because there is there's conventional organic agriculture that is doing nearly as much harm to soil and watersheds and runoff and pollution as conventional agriculture. But because it's got that label, you know, they get to charge more, but we need to go beyond organic. And the latest word is regenerative. It could be just as bastardized as organic, so we have to be careful about that. We have to get to the root of what's actually happening. And I'd say that's my parting gift to everyone is, one, vote with your dollar and know your farmer. Like, if you know your farmer, certifications aren't as important, right? Because it can always be bastardized. It can always be worked around this or that. But if you have a true relationship with the person growing your fruits and vegetables and your meat, and they have an open door policy, or at least the ability to come visit where that stuff's being grown, that's the best. I mean, I know that's not an option for urban, LA or New York or what have you, but in many places we have the ability to actually make a relationship with the food that nourishes us, and that starts to rebuild that eroded community that we just talked about, how it was eroded by the monocropping of so many things. So that's how we should start building community and being part of the solution.
I love it. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Good thoughts.
Hello, my name is Tautrim. I'm a 6th generation steward on this here piece of land that we call Aurelia Ranch. Purchased in early 1860s by my great-great-great-grandfather. He and his wife Mercedes Gonzalez. Actually about in the late 1860s. Moved on here before that and purchased it a bit after, and we have the 5th and the 6th and the 7th generation currently living on this piece of property.
Wow.
This has been whittled down a bit. It's currently 300 acres. We're on the Gaviota Coast, just north of Santa Barbara County, California, and we do enjoy a beautiful Mediterranean climate. We have a very unique east to west running mountain range in this part of California, which a lot of people don't realize, but I'm staring right at the ocean behind me, and that's dead south. So we have a south-facing ocean with a east to west mountain range behind us, ascending as mountains. And Gaviota Coast consists of about 32 watersheds that run that real short distance from about 4,000 foot elevation of the San Ynez Range right down to the ocean. So we're right there in the middle of that, and yeah, that's the piece of paradise that we're nurturing here.
And would you say you do regenerative agriculture or sustainable?
Sure. So the lexicon of the type of movement that we're talking about has changed over the years. When 20 years ago we all were saying sustainability, and then somebody it's like, well, we don't want to just sustain, especially sustain a depleted environment that we've all inherited, but no, we want to regenerate. So that feels a lot better. That's definitely the new lexicon, the new language that everyone's using, regenerative, and sure, I get behind that full force. Yeah, we've obviously been through a path of learning over the last 20 years and are constantly learning, and we'll continue to learn till the day we die. So one of my big early influences was permaculture, and that does kind of encompass a lot of everything that we focus on. And without saying the word regenerative too many times in that movement, it definitely is a regenerative process, permaculture.
Do you want to tell me how you're regenerative, or do you want to go around and show me? Or?
Sure. And would you prefer I look into your eyes or the camera?
My eyes, actually.
Okay.
Thank you. Good question.
Sure. So the lower garden isn't too impressive right now, but sure, we can do a quick little walk around.
And I can pan too of what you're talking about.
Yeah, cool. So in permaculture we have zones, and zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 is getting a little further away out into where we don't visit every single day. Zone 4 is our far off pastures, and zone 5 is our wilderness area. So the question was, how do we show our examples of regenerative? What are we doing, this and that? And we can just take a quick walk around our zone 1 and point out a couple things. Right now it's April after a fairly big winter, so our spring garden is a bit delayed getting planted, but in this area we have very strong northwest winds. So if you look at just the garden design here, we have olive trees that grow up pretty high, which block that northwest wind. And then our grape vine, which is over here, which obviously loses its leaves in the winter, is just starting to come back. And we let that grape kind of grow into the mulberry tree behind it. We got guava there, and all this to basically bring protection to the garden which exists here below us. But we can walk up here this way and show you around. We got multiple mulberries on site, many different varieties, and you'll see that some are just coming out of dormancy, some already have fruit. Just depends which ones. This is one of our species we love. This is a native elderberry tree, highly prunable, which I have pruned it here in the garden. And then
the elderberry tree and these other plants, are they things you harvest?
Yeah, the elderberry is a great medicinal plant. Make tinctures and cough syrups and stuff like that. All the mulberries are either fodder for their leaves, or the fruit's amazing, chickens, pigs, stuff like that. And then the grape, of course. We got some culinary herbs down here. Yarrow and calendula, and our nasturtium obviously is going off after a nice big winter.
The containers down here, are they active now, and what's going on?
Yeah, so the container planting, we've just been experimenting. We got different, like I said, some of our springtime planting has been delayed. We really just popped into spring about 2 weeks ago. It's been a cold, wet winter. We also run a sawmill on site, so the flitches, what we call flitches, the first cut off of a log, just became a easy use for raised garden beds, and it allows us to put gopher cages underneath there and not have to deal with gophers as much in the garden. And yeah, what else can I show you? Come on out here. Yeah, we'll let him get out of here.
One thing about the forest gardener I'm featuring is he has large tall trees that last 20 years, and then at the end of the 20-year cycle he harvests them for wood, for building materials. I understand you do that too, I guess. Yeah. I'll be curious to see that. I saw some pictures of women sawing a large log too, and that was fascinating.
Nice. Yeah, I'll talk a bit about that. We don't have big timber. Well, we can point to some of these. These are cypress, but I obviously didn't plant these. But yeah, cypress.
Are you on any type of cycle?
No, I mean, if you're talking about rotational forestry, no, because we just haven't been around that long. But the question being, are we on some type of cycle? The one cycle I'll mention is we've kind of focused on species that only need to be really cared for 3 summers, and then they're good to go. You might call that climate appropriate for this environment.
How is that climate appropriate?
Basically water usage, I'd say. And it's not to say we don't have any avocado trees, for example. We do, but they're not a focus. We have 2 avocado trees that serve, our community with plenty of avocados. But the difference between an avocado is if you stop watering it after year 3, it doesn't produce fruit and it starts to ale. Versus something like this, which is a newly planted mulberry, which is only its 3rd year, just about 3 years old. One more summer of giving this thing love, and we'll never have to water it again. It's good to go. Another species that exemplifies that is this, which is carob. And if you see all the carob pods here, this is another great example of a species that give it love for 3 summers, nothing in the winter because we're presumably getting winter rains. And once this thing locks in, you're good to go. And this is super nutritionally dense food for humans. We grind it into carob powder, but also pigs, chickens, and even we feed it to the cattle sometimes. So this is a great species that exemplifies what I'm talking about when I say give it love for 3 years and then you can wean it off any summertime water. And that's essentially what we're trying to do, which is, addressing climate appropriate. We don't have any abundant springs or year-round water or stuff like that. So water's essentially it. Southern California is more or less a desert currently, so we got to maximize water.
And do you provide for a community, or do you sell to the outside public?
Everything I'm kind of taking you through and showing you is just for personal consumption. We do raise pasture-raised meat, beef, chicken, and pork, and that's to sell for the larger community. But the stuff like the mulberry or the carob or any of that, the mushrooms off the mushroom logs, none of that is sold. It's just more hobby.
Those are mushroom logs?
Yeah, unfortunately I just harvested the shiitakes last night and had them for dinner. But yeah, this was an oak tree that fell down, and so we plugged, got the inoculated plugs, drilled them into the logs, and then 2 years later they just sprout out of here. I just harvested last night, and
were they good?
They were so good. Yeah, they're amazing.
Nice.
So another regenerative practice in this environment is, one of the rules they teach you in permaculture is 100% cover 100% of the time, and that refers to ground cover. So this is an amazing species, an amazing ground cover, vetch. It covers the soil surface well, and it's a good chop and drop species, meaning as it dies off, you can either chop it and feed it or just let it lay in place, and it's a good soil builder. So whenever we can have ground cover, it's a good thing.
And part of your regeneration is regenerating the soil?
Absolutely. So building soil health and fertility is really, I'd say, the keystone of regenerative agriculture, especially, well, probably any environment, but especially here where we have very long, dry summers. And yeah, we're Mediterranean. We are a gentle climate in general. that being said, when you don't have rain for 8 months out of the year, sometimes longer, that's a long time for your soil to have to be that dry. So how do you combat that? You combat that with soil health, because as you build soil health, you build water retention, the ability for the soil to retain water. You also, as a function of that, you build water infiltration. So the better tilth you have in your soil, the deeper water can penetrate. You also, with that deeper tilth, you have more biology.
Did you say deep tilt?
Tilth.
What tilth?
Tilth is like when you know what? Gophers make great tilth. A lot of us complain about gophers, but you know, that's tilth of soil. It's like friable. And as much as gophers are scrounged upon, they do have their function in the ecosystem. So as the tilth of the soil improves, as the water holding capacity of the soil improves, so does the biological activity in the soil. And all those things help with those long, dry summers. So we got onto that subject talking about ground cover and why it's good to have 100% cover 100% of the time. I'm not saying we achieve that always, but that's the goal. So I'll show you another example of a good ground
I see it's
cover.
also not just flat land, so I guess it helps for soil erosion, huh? The ground cover?
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna...
Sure, you can get there.
I'm gonna ask you to
Oh.
pay attention to walk on this
Okay,
bridge. Don't
okay.
step on the side, because
Okay.
just walk in the middle. It's a little shaky, sometimes catches people off guard.
Can I get a shot of you walking across it?
Sure.
Okay. Most of this is not staged, little stagey stuff here and there just to get the shot. Okay, great little bridge. Where are we now?
So here's an example of cover, ground cover, and this is milky oats. And instead of weed whipping this or mowing it, we could graze it down. This is close to our zone 1 area, but we just crimped it, what's called crimping, and basically have this little hand tool that just crimps the grass.
Is it this here is crimped?
Yeah, exactly. So by crimping the grass, we just give that soil protection over the summer, and this will slowly decompose. But if we were to mow this, cut it, it instantly dries and usually just somehow disappears and doesn't cover that soil surface. So on a larger scale, you can basically do this with big machines like Chevron style, chevron shaped roller crimpers, they're called. But in a small situation, you can just do it by hand. So
And
that's...
And it's part of the effort to not have too heavy machinery on the ground that would compact it and make it unhealthy.
Yeah, and it's just appropriate for this place because we don't have, it's just a small place. We don't have access to equipment in here, nor would we want it. So here's another shot worth getting or checking out. This is a swale that basically like I said, it looks bright and sunny, this and that. We literally just came out of a pretty heavy winter, and we got 2 inches of rain in 2 days just about 2 weeks ago. So this swale is still holding water and is slowly infiltrating that water.
Did you build that swale?
Yeah. So we engineered this to basically fill up. It has a spillway right here. So if this is actually an armored spillway, meaning it has some cement. We call it urbanite just because we salvage it from the urban environment. But yeah, this is a armored sill under here, so when this swale fills up, it spills into that draw and then continues down. So reticulating that water, like really trying to use that water as many times as we can through the landscape before it exits into the ocean. Because if we're successful, there is no runoff, and it's all infiltrating into the groundwater and giving us our rehydrating our wells, you could say. If you want to glance over here, this is you caught us in the middle of the day, which means my animals are going to be sleeping, but I bet they're going to be posted up under a carob tree so we can walk and have a look at
Should
them.
I come over the fence
Sure.
here? Okay. Woo!
It's right at that height.
Okay. There we go. Oh my goodness.
Hey. Hey, buddy.
What are these guys?
These are purebred Cooney pigs. So this is a breed of pig from New Zealand, and they're super docile, super friendly, but it's the middle of the day. Sun's out bright, so they're hanging under the carob tree.
How many do you have?
In this bunch right here, there's 5.
Uh-huh.
This is a brindle one. They actually have trouble seeing, so sometimes they'll get startled. But yeah, what's unique about them is they have very little nose. If you look at their nose, it's almost like a pug. And the beauty of that is the nose for the pig is honestly, from a human perspective, the most destructive part of the pig. It can actually use that nose just like a shovel, and most species of pigs do. This breed is really unique in that it doesn't have that shovel nose, so it doesn't harm trees. We can basically graze these pigs right under our fruit trees, these trees, our carob trees, and they won't be destructive. They won't dig up the soil. So they're a great option for a small farm or someone.
Do you harvest the pigs?
We do. Yeah. We bred these and harvested these for about the last 6 years. We've been doing that.
Nice.
So they're early under these trees to be utilizing the carob, but these actually have a long way to go. So there'll be a whole cycle of them getting moved, this area having rest, and then when these are fully mature, quite a ways from now, they'll be back under here, and they'll be chomping those carob.
So they get most of what they eat from the plants?
We definitely supplement. This pig is great. It's known as a grazer, as you can see there. He's eating wheat and vetch and some milky oats. So they do love grass. They're kind of a unique pig species in that they do eat grass a lot more than other species. But we supplement them. A lot of the micronutrients, they say, are hard to find, so they get supplemental feed. We also supplement them with brewer's grain. When you brew beer, and people say, "Oh, do they get drunk?" No, it's not fermented yet. If you know anything about brewing beer, you actually use the grain and then immediately discard the grain, and it's the liquid that you keep that you ferment. So the grain isn't fermented at all, but they love that as well. So
And do you sell some of the pork you harvest?
we do, yeah, we do. So
So you have both plants and animals on your farm, right?
absolutely, yeah, and I'm a proponent of that. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it should be. And a lot of these food safety laws, which I'm sure were, best of intentions, it's a real issue. This idea that plants and animals need to be completely separated. Now, sure, of course, if you're growing lettuce, you don't want to have, chickens in your lettuce field because one, they're going to eat it, but two, they're going to poop on it. So sure, there's the reasons for a separation, but the idea that you can't bring sheep into a vineyard or goats into an orchard or in between cycles is ludicrous. Like that's how we cycle nutrients, is through animal impact, animal nutrient cycling. And the fact that we're being told that, oh no, animals, plants, total separation, you need your animals in a factory, a confined feeding animal operation, and you need your crops in this sterile environment with plastic. It's nuts. It's never been that way before.
Okay, nice.
They're starting to wake up saying, what's going on?
Do they have names?
Not these ones, not our...
Do you have kids?
I do. I have 2 boys, yeah.
Are they involved with the operation?
Yeah.
How old are
they? 15 and 16.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, nice to see you, pigs.
Let's see. While we're out here, I don't have... I'll just speak to the mulberry a little bit. So here you see a bunch of different mulberry from seed, so multiple different characteristics. Mulberry puts its fruit out on first year's growth, so this is all brand new, this year's wood, and that will be all the mulberry fruit coming. So this was an experiment as a silvopasture type operation where we have a whole line, multiple lines of mulberry trees planted very close together, and they're just in their about 3rd year, so they're still getting good protection from the animal impact, but we bring the pigs right up to the base of them so they can help browse right along the base. Eventually these will be mature enough to handle the grazing directly on them.
What's a silvopasture?
Silvopasture is just trees in rangeland, basically. Trees and grassland put together. So I'm a real proponent of silvopasture in this environment, mainly because trees, as we say in permaculture, just stack functions, right? Trees bring a lot to the table. Protection of the soil surface, wind block, wildlife habitat. We bring in nitrogen fixers, so now we're fixing atmospheric nitrogen, helping the soil in that way. And now if you add on to that products you can sell, or things that can go to your animals. Like mulberry's got an amazing nutritious leaf, tops out there with even alfalfa in terms of how much nutrient density the leaves have. So silvopasture is the idea that, okay, we're grazing animals, but we also bring trees into the environment to help stack those functions. So not only are animals getting shelter from the wind, from the sun, all that, but they're actually getting nutrient dense food. And what's cool about mulberry is they're at their peak when our rangeland is at its worst, right? In the middle of August or July, August, September, when our annual grasslands are, you know, at their driest, mulberry leaves are beautiful and healthy. So there's multiple species that we've been toying with. Some in the background back there are white sapote. So those have, of course, been planted quite a number of years ago. So we don't protect those from animal impact. The pigs were just in that area, so it's grazed down pretty good. Sapote produces a nice big fruit. Pigs love it. So that was one of our first experiments of plants for silvopasture. And that's, for Southern California, I think that's one of the biggest improvements we can make on grazing animals on rangeland, is getting more trees in our landscape for all those benefits, but really for the benefit of the animals as a fodder, as a food species for those. And that's less common when you say silvopasture. What's often thought of is just timber trees on rangeland. And that's stacking functions in that you have a long-term crop on a crop rotation, like 30, 40-year crop rotation of, say, pine trees with cattle under it. That's commonly thought of as silvopasture in, say, the East Coast or something. But out here, we're trying to expand the vision of what silvopasture looks like. But that being said, I'm a big proponent of utilizing timber species on rangeland, and we can talk a bit about that because we're just actually about to plant a bunch of trees out on rangeland that will be in that rotation for, you know, a long time.
What type of trees?
We're looking at high value timber trees. So we'll be planting Monterey cypress. There's some in the far distance behind me, those big ones. That's a favorite species of mine. We'll be planting Acacia melanoxylon, which is known as blackwood or black acacia. I can show you what that wood looks like. It's gorgeous, super high value timber. We have some black walnut planted more in our riparian zone. That's a great tree for its nuts, but also its wood. And then we have locust, black locust, which is well known as one of nature's best treated lumbers. It will last longer in the ground than any other species. It also fixes nitrogen. It's a great bee fodder, or bee plant. Has gorgeous flowers that the bees love, and all animals love to browse it, so it's a great fodder for animals. And then we're also planting, it's called silky oak. It's not a quercus, but it's Grevillea robusta. It's another high value timber that I love working with that wood. So
You're a woodworker too?
I am, yeah. I'm a woodworker. We have 2 different sawmills on the property. Timber King, which is a band sawmill, and then a Lucas mill out of Australia, which is a great sawmill. It's either a swing blade mill, or we can put a big slabber attachment on it and slab big, you know, 50, 58 inch slabs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll cruise somewhere else.
Is this still part of Zone 1 or Zone 2?
I'd say Zone 2 across that little bridge we walked. Yeah.
Do I smell anise?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just step over here.
Okay, can you hold my camera
Yeah,
while I
sure.
come over? Don't want to goose myself. Okay. Actually, I'm going to take off my sweatshirt.
Yeah,
Warmed up a bit. It must be nice farming right by the ocean, but then have its drawbacks too.
I mean, you gotta choose some things that aren't so susceptible to salt. But
okay, thank you.
just let me think where we'll go next.
How many acres do you have?
This is 300 acres. Yeah.
Do you own it?
It's in the family. My father's still around, so yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How many people work it?
My dad's still around. I got two sons, 15 and 16. They're helping. My wife does a ton of work on the property, and then, you know, we have grazers that come in. We have Kuyama lamb that graze sheep sometimes, and that'll be a seasonal thing. We have a small herd of cattle, but not many.
Okay. And do you hire others from time to help?
From time to time. Mainly it's an in-house endeavor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Yeah, we'll walk over here and so I just want to point out, this can't be overstated enough, the importance of carbon in your, getting as much carbon as you can in your property to help with soil building and compost and all that. So if you're looking to do this, starting out to do this, have property, want to do this, want to get into regenerative ag, there's folks that say, oh, I should be a closed loop system. Sure, in a perfect world, we all have big wood lots. We all have an ample source of wood chip by our own wood lot, but that's, not many of us have that. So creating relationship with tree trimming companies in your local area is a great resource to get wood chip. What I remind people, when you get wood chips, a great source of carbon, great additive to long-term compost piles, but you got to remember, every time you see this, you got to do this. You got to go plant a tree, because that's the result of a tree getting cut down most often. Sometimes, sure, limbing and pruning and doing that, but in today's day and age, it seems like we just have a lot of trees being cut down. So go plant a tree.
Let me get a shot of your shirt again. Thank you, yes. And do they suck carbon out of the air, or how do they help with carbon?
Well, this is, as I said, a source of high carbon, 200 to 1 plus, in wood chip. The question was, does that help with carbon sequestration? It basically helps with soil building. Carbon-rich composts are mycorrhizal fungi's favorite source of food, you know. So you really want carbon-rich compost to grow, inoculate mycorrhizal fungi. So then when you wood chip, go around trees, you don't want to integrate a carbon-rich source like this into soil because it will actually rob nitrogen, but we top dress with this. We'll mulch with it around trees, helps reduce weeds, but it also eventually breaks down and becomes food for the soil microbes and especially the fungi. So here we have a little guild of loquat trees and honey locust. So the honey locust are winter dormant, so they're just coming out of dormancy, but they're looking good. So this is a young honey locust that's just got weeded, little compost spread. Now we'll wood chip around this and retard that growth of weeds through the summer, cover that compost up, and when we do irrigate these, because these are still in their first few years of living, so they're getting their summertime love still, that will help retain some of that soil moisture. Here's if you have a shot this way, this is a opportunity to talk about succession of species and guilds. So oftentimes you'll plant a guild, and
a guild, is that multiple things?
Multiple things together that mutually benefit each other. In a guild, there's always a successional plan for that guild. So here's a great example where Leucaena, or some people pronounce it Lucina, is this plant. It's a nitrogen fixer. It's an early successional, fast-growing tree, not super long-lived, and because it fixes nitrogen and gives fast-growing shade, we used it as a nurse species for the much more long-lived Quercus agrifolia, which is the coast live oak behind it. And so if you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 coast live oaks here planted with multiple leucaenas around them. And this is going on, if I'd had to guess, it'd be like 7 years or something. So what the oaks did is they grew really erect to try to get that light and get established. And now we're at a point where we'll probably chop and drop these leucaenas down in heavy mulch around the oaks and let all that nitrogen percolate into the soil that's in the leaves. But the oaks have now been fully established, protected from that initial sun and wind, and they'll be super long-lived as these die away. So it's a good example of just a succession of species.
The succulents, are they decorative? Or?
The succulents, this is actually a highly medicinal aloe, said to be more medicinal than the conventional aloe that you buy at the store, but very similar. Any cuts or wounds or anything like this aloe vera gel is amazing stuff. This is also a species that produces this flower that actually has a flower in the winter when there's almost no pollinator flowers, no flowers that can be used for the bees. So it's a great plant. Just gonna lock this real quick. I'd say resist filming like trailer and some of our structures.
Okay.
Too bad, right before you got here, there was a whale that was just
Oh, really?
breaching right there.
Do you have your ranch partly as educational to others?
Yeah, we just had UCSB, like 40 students out from UCSB last week from the agroecology program, and changing food systems, I think was one of the name of one of the classes.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'll stand here and we'll talk about this guild.
Okay.
So, talking climate appropriate species, this and that, oftentimes people see bamboo and think, oh, doesn't that take a lot of water, or want a lot of water? And is that, quote, climate appropriate or regenerative, this and that? I love bamboo, and I love building with bamboo and growing bamboo. So the problem is the solution, as we say in permaculture. And what I mean by that is we all have what society thinks is waste. But waste is just a concept we need to move away from and think of it as a resource. So what I'm talking about is wastewater, what's called wastewater. We all have it, and luckily California figured it out finally, changed the laws. We actually had some personal friends that helped do that law changing to get gray water legal in California. So this is all to say that this is just water from our washing machine.
Wow.
That basically comes into a classic mulch basin design, our good friend Art Ludwig classic mulch basin design, and out of this mulch basin we grow all kinds of stuff. So in the deepest center of the most water loving we have bamboo, but on the outskirts we have rose apple. This produces an amazing fruit. You bite into it, it tastes just like rose smells like. We got goji berry in here. There's olives on the other dry side perimeter. There's a few other species in here. So again, just utilizing our, what I think of as a resource, but is called a wastewater, and able to grow pretty significant bamboo. This is old hammy-eye. And this species of bamboo can be a great building material, so we love it. Let me pick a different zone to talk to you about something. Do you want any in-the-house footage of showing woods that I've milled and built with, or is that not quite appropriate?
Well, less appropriate than other things here. I'm curious myself because I'm a woodworker too, an amateur, but would like to see your mill. Well, actually, can we quickly see some?
Yeah.
Thank you. The walkway here, what are these on the ground?
Got 3 different species there. Redwood, there's a eucalyptus, some olive. It's a little mishmash.
Nice.
But
Look at this, wow.
so as I said, stacking functions, multiple income streams is a important part of a regenerative practice, meaning diversified income streams, right? You don't want to all plant soybeans and then watch the soy market tank and you're bummed, you're screwed, you know? So we honor that a diversified income stream is the best, and so I've taken a liking into woodworking and run a sawmill, and so oftentimes I basically like wood, and so I've built a house out of multiple different woods. So this is our silky oak, our Grevillea robusta. We have some stairs of a black acacia, a floor of black walnut.
Is this bamboo?
That's bamboo. Yeah.
Beautiful countertops.
Yeah, those counters are, well, this is redwood.
Oh, really? Huh.
I wasn't planning on company, so excuse the walk around.
Pretty neat for not expecting company.
Yeah, so that's an earthen floor. So that's our native soil.
Really?
That's the color of our native soil, just with some straw flecks. This is, these steps are Eucalyptus globulus, or blue gum eucalyptus. This nice piece is a Hollywood juniper. It's kind of an artsy piece.
It is.
And then a nice burl of old growth redwood. Always leave the Bible out so you can learn something new every day. Yeah, salvaged old growth redwood. This is more Grevillea robusta. And then some really unique eucalyptus in here. This is a eucalyptus.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And nothing in here is stained.
Oh, how is it coated?
This is called Envirotech, and it's a self-leveling epoxy.
Wow.
So this is pretty hardy for counters.
Wow.
Yeah. Little black acacia and silky oak. So these are a lot of the species that we're planting in our up in our fields, in our silvopasture. Redwood is probably not appropriate anymore in this climate, so I'm not planting any of that.
Oh, huh.
But there's a lot of redwood around town, and it seems to be ailing, but
Thank you for
give it
that tour.
quick little sneak peek in there. What do we got? We got some mac nuts here. This is kiwi.
What are these?
These are macadamia nuts. So this is another tree that totally climate appropriate. Give it water for 3 years and it's on its way. There's some really drought tolerant varieties of this, and I mean, these are pretty good sized nuts for a mac nut grown in California.
Is it like a chestnut? A little different, huh?
Yeah, I don't know too much about chestnut. We don't grow any chestnuts here, but
Can you eat them raw?
you can eat them raw, yeah. I could get a cracker and show you. They're very hard outer shells, so
Okay.
they do take a cracker. But yeah. Maybe we'll just show you the upper field from afar.
Okay. Okay, I'm recording again.
Cool, so this is getting up into our outer zone 3 area, but we recently took place in the Healthy Soils program, which was a California funded grant program for building soil, carbon sequestration, stuff like that. And so we got a grant and put in pollinator hedgerows and tree planting and rangeland planting. And so we won't walk up there because it's some of those upper fields, but you can see some of the previous tree planting I did, that Monterey cypress line, and that was quite a few years ago. I've learned a lot since then, and so we're bulking out that tree planting line with a bunch more tree species, which will actually be for long-term rotational harvest of high-value timber trees.
Like a 10 or 15 year term?
No, more like 30.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And then the pollinator hedgerows are on these contour fence lines that you can't quite make out, but in those plantings for our pollinator hedgerows, we have some of this plant right here, which is the Catalina cherry. That's our native prunus species. And then we have mule fat, which there's some of that right behind there. There's white sage. We have red berry. These are all natives. And there's what else am I missing? Toyon, in the toyon, and lemonade berry. So all those species are planted in our pollinator hedgerow, and those are just on contour right along our fences. So that will help bulk out the biodiversity of those pastures. So that's all up there, and we planted the pollinator hedgerow, great timing right before this big epic winter that we just had. So, and then the tree planting's happening right now, so there's good deep soil moisture, so I feel like it's a great time to plant. And we also did a compost application on rangeland, so just applying a thin layer of compost out on the land right before rain. It's good timing. That's your perfect scenario. Get it out there and let it rain. And
Any particular type of compost?
that's a great question. We walked past our compost, but we do make our own compost with a Johnson Sioux type of aerated, static aerated compost. This was a much larger scale than we produce. This was over 100 tons of compost, so we did have to bring it in. But knowing that it was brought in from another source, we took the opportunity to basically integrate some very biologically active compost into that other compost and let that mature for about another 4 months and integrated that. So that was our solution to, one, being required to get compost from a certified facility, two, not being able to produce that much compost and not being a certified compost facility. So that was our little meet in the middle. Yeah.
Okay.